Yasodananda.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachadane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 5, Verse 56. Kalim Sabha Jayantyarya
Kalim Sabha Jayantyarya.
Gunagya Sarabhaginaha
Gunagya Sarabhaginaha.
Yatra Sankirtanenaiva
Yatra Sankirtanenaiva
Sarvasvarto Vilabhyate.
Sarvasvarto Vilabhyate. Kalim Sabha Jayantyarya. Kalim Sabha Jayantyarya. Gunagnya Sarabhaginaha. Gunagnya Sarabhaginaha. Yatra Sankirtane Naiva. Yatra Sankirtane Naiva. Sarvasvarto Bhilabhyate. Sarvasvarto Bhilabhyate.
Kalim Sabha Jayanti Arya.
Kalim Sabha Jayantyarya.
Gunanya Sarabhaginaha.
Gunagnya Sarabhaginaha.
Yatra Sankirtane Naiva.
Yatra Sankirtane Naiva.
Sarvasvarto Vilabhyate.
Sarvasvarto Vilabhyate.
Kalim Sabha Janantyarya.
Kalim Sabha Jayantyarya.
Gunajnana Sarabhaginaha.
Gunagnya Sarabhaginaha.
Yatra Sankirtane Naiva.
Yatra Sankirtane Naiva.
Sarvasvartho Abhilabhyate.
Sarvasvarto Vilabhyate.
Kalim Sabha Jayantyarya.
Kalim Sabha Jayantyarya.
Gunagnya Sarabhaginaha.
Gunagnya Sarabhaginaha.
Yatra Sankirtane Naiva.
Yatra Sankirtane Naiva.
Sarvasartho Abhilabhyate.
Sarvasvarto Vilabhyate.
Kalim Sabha Jayantyarya.
Kalim Sabha Jayantyarya.
Gunagnya Sarabhaginaha.
Gunagnya Sarabhaginaha.
Yatra Sankirtane Naiva.
Yatra Sankirtane Naiva.
Sarvasvartho Vilabhyate.
Sarvasvarto Vilabhyate.
Kalim Sabha Jayantyarya.
Kalim Sabha Jayantyarya.
Gunagnya Sarabhaginaha.
Gunagnya Sarabhaginaha.
Yatra Sankirtane Naiva.
Yatra Sankirtane Naiva.
Sarvasvartho Vilabhyate.
Sarvasvarto Vilabhyate.
Kalim,
Kalim.
age of Kali.
Age of Kali.
Sabha Jayanti,
Sabha Jayanti.
they praise.
They praise.
Arya,
Arya.
progressive souls.
Progressive souls.
Gunagya,
Gunagnya.
who know the true value.
Who know the true value.
Sarabhagina,
Sarabhagina.
who are able to pick out the essence.
Who are able to pick out the essence.
Yatra,
Yatra.
in which
In which
Sankirtanena,
Sankirtanena.
by the congregational chanting of the holy names of the Supreme Lord.
By the congregation chanting of the holy names of the Supreme Lord.
Eva,
Eva.
merely.
Merely.
Sarva,
Sarva.
all.
All.
Svarta,
Swarta.
desired goals.
Desired goals.
Abhilabhyate,
Abhilabhyate.
are attained.
Are attained.
Translation: those who are actually advanced in knowledge are able to appreciate the essential value of this age of Kali. Such enlightened persons worship Kali Yuga, because in this fallen age, all perfection of life can easily be achieved by the performance of Sankirtana. Purport, it is stated here that among the four ages, Satya, Treta, Dvarpa, and Kali, Kali Yuga is actually the best, because in this age the Lord mercifully distributes the highest perfection of consciousness, namely Krishna consciousness, very freely. The word Arya has been defined by Srila Prabhupada as one who is advancing spiritually. The nature of an advanced person is to search for the essence of life. For example, the essence of a material body is not the body itself, but the spirit soul that is within the body. Therefore, an intelligent person gives more attention to the eternal spirit soul than to the temporary body. Similarly, although Kali Yuga is considered to be an ocean of contamination, there's also an ocean of good fortune in Kali Yuga, namely the Sankirtan movement. In other words, all of the degraded qualities of this age are completely counteracted by the process of chanting the holy names of the Lord. Thus it is said in the Vedic language, Jayan Krite Yajanyagyay Tretayam Darpayarchayan Yad Apnoti Tad Apnoti Kalo Sankirtya Keshavam. Whatever is achieved in Satya Yuga meditation and Treta Yuga by offering of ritual sacrifices, and in Dwarpa by temple worship is achieved in Kali Yuga by chanting the names of Lord Keshava congregationally. The Vedic process gradually lifts the conditioned entity out of the darkness of ahankara, or false identification with the gross material body, and brings him to the platform of self-realization, or aham brahmasmi, I am spirit, soul, I am eternal. One has to make further progress to discover that although one is eternal, there's a superior eternal entity who is the Lord himself within one's own heart and with every atom of the material universe. Beyond the second phase of self-realization, there is the third and final stage of perfection, which is realization of Bhagavan, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his own abode. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is not primarily the superintendent of this world, but rather the enjoyer of his own world, which is beyond the most fantastic dreams of the conditioned living entity. In other words, although the king or president of a country is ultimately the controller of the prison department, the king or president derives actual pleasure within his own palace and not in administering justice to the foolish prisoners. Similarly, the Lord appoints the demigods to administer the material creation on his behalf, while he personally enjoys the ocean of transcendental bliss in his own transcendental kingdom. Thus, realization of the Lord within his own kingdom is far superior to the primitive understanding that the Lord is the creator of the prison of the material world. This realization of Bhagavan begins with understanding that there are innumerable Vaikuntha planets in the spiritual sky, and in each of them a particular expansion of Narayan dwells, with innumerable devotees who are attached to that particular form. The central and chief planet in the spiritual sky is called Krishna Loka. There the personality of God exhibits his supreme and original form of Govinda, as confirmed by Lord Brahma, Govinda Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Lord Brahma also states Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anari Ada Govinda Sarva Karana Karana. Thus, love of Krishna and entrance into Krishna's planet is, in the spiritual sky, is the most supremely perfect and exalted status of life available anywhere and at any time throughout the totality of existence. That perfection is available in Kali Yuga simply by chanting the holy name of God. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Therefore, every sane man, woman, or child should deeply understand the unprecedented opportunity offer by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and seriously take up this chanting process. Only the most unfortunate and irrational person will neglect this transcendental opportunity. So, usually we think of Kali Yuga as a degraded age. It is sometimes called the age of coral. In the Greek mythology, it is the age of iron. And the first age is the age of gold. The second age of silver. Third is the age of bronze. The fourth age is the age of iron. That's the Greek idea. But we have this similar idea in the Vedic literature. Satya Yuga is the best and the purest, full of sattva, full of religiosity, etc. And Kali Yuga is the worst, full of corruption and degradation, etc. So that is the conception of the different ages, gradual degradation. So instead of evolution, we devolute. We go backwards. We become lesser, less civilized, etc. as we go to Kali Yuga. So it is described that in Kali Yuga, people are not very intelligent. They are the most foolish. People in Satya Yuga, most intelligent. And of course that means also they can understand scripture properly. Kali Yuga, very unintelligent. They cannot understand scripture at all. So the big problem. Furthermore, they have short lifespans. So in Satya Yuga, very, very long, 100,000 years or something like that, they live. In Kali Yuga, people struggle to live 100 years. So short lifespan. And thus within that short lifespan, again, you could not accumulate too much knowledge. Furthermore, the people are always disturbed by material enjoyments. In Satya Yuga, very sattvic and they're detached. Kali Yuga, everyone is very attached to enjoyment. So these are causes for criticizing Kali Yuga, not a very favorable place for spiritual life. But this is an arrangement of the Supreme Lord. He makes a very good system for Satya Yuga, gradually declines to Kali Yuga. So we can say why the Lord does that. Why do we have Satya Yuga all the time? Actually, there is. If you go to Svargaloka, there's no Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga only exists here. In fact, even if you go to other Varshas, you go to Hari Varsha, and Ketumala Varsha, Yalavirta Varsha, which are on our Jambudweep, on Bhumandala, they don't have Kali Yuga also. So this Bharat Varsha, this is where we get all these different yugas. But nevertheless, it is an arrangement by the Lord, a specific arrangement by the Lord. So why would he want to do that? Make Bharat Varsha worse in one sense. So it must have a purpose. So the purpose also is there. We see that the nature of the material world is that everything gets destroyed. Right? If you have a car and you keep it for 20 years, gradually it gets worse and worse and breaks down more and more, and then you have to sell it because it's useless. It devalues it. It gets worse and worse. So everything in the material world degrades. If we have big mountains, after millions of years, they get lesser and lesser and lesser. They become hills eventually. Bodies start out nice and healthy. They decline. They get old and they die. So everything is subject to influence of time. And it degrades. So that is illustrated nicely by the degradation of civilization over time. Of course, we see that with individual nations. Historically speaking, not according to Vedas, that's another thing, but according to modern ideas of history. So we have ancient civilizations like Greek and Roman, Egyptian, Chinese, or whatever. Very great at one time, they gradually decline and they disappear. So every great civilization has gone through this. Recently we had the British Empire spread all over the world. And then very quickly it dissolved after the Second World War. It disappeared. It's no longer there. We got one little country, Britain, there. So everything declines with time. This is the nature of the material world. Nothing can last. So that is illustrated by the yuga cycles, repeated yuga cycles in the day of Brahma. But, of course, the Lord just doesn't leave the world in a degraded state. He restores it. And then we come back to Satya Yuga again. After 4 million years or so, we get back to a good life, and then it declines again. And then it starts all over again, declines again. That's the nature of material world. Of course, if we go on a larger scale, we have these cycles, 1,000 cycles in one day of Brahma happening. The yuga cycles. We got bigger cycles. The day of Brahma. After the day of Brahma, then everything's finished again. And then starts in the morning of Brahma, everything is created again, it reaches noon, and then it starts to decline, and then finally, nighttime, everything's destroyed again. So we get all these days of Brahma on a larger cycle. Then we have the huge cycle of Brahma's whole lifetime. And again, everything gets merged into Prakriti at the end. Everything disappears. Not one universe, but all the universes dissolve. And then Lord creates again, and everything is restored, and everything is nice and new again. We have new universes, and again they're destroyed. So what this illustrates is the nature of material world under the influence of time. Everything gets destroyed. We can cover the illusion a little bit. So that's why if you go to Svargaloka, you can pretend, okay, we're not having this degradation. But still, after, I guess, 71 yuga cycles, Devatas are finished. They have to leave their place. They don't have, Indra is no longer Indra. So they have their destruction also. And even Brahmaloka is destroyed finally. So that's on the huge scale. On the individual scale, we have our own body created and destroyed. Now, the interesting thing is, in spite of that, we pretend we don't know. And this is exactly what Yudhisthira said when asked by the Yaksha, the question, what is the most astonishing? And then Yudhisthira, the most astonishing thing is that everybody dies. Everybody marches off to death. And we see in our grandparents and our great-grandparents and everybody before them, we look at history, everybody has died. So the astonishing thing is that though we see this, we think, I'm not going to die. And we continue living as if nothing is wrong. And we continue our life, and finally we die. So this is the illusion that we are in the material world. And even our body is getting old, still we're not thinking we're dying. So, to remind us, we have various mechanisms. Of course, Scripture reminds us all the time, but even we don't want to listen to Scripture. But we are forced to get that reminder all the time by various things. So, of course, one is the observation of our own body. It must get old. As we get old, we're forced to accept that it's going to disappear because our senses decline and we become more miserable, we get sick, whatever. So it's a sign that we're not going to last forever. So on a larger scale, we have this cycle of Satya, Treta, Dwapara, Kali going on continuously, even though we cannot see it. But if we go to Scripture, then we realize this is what is happening. If we don't understand Scripture, then any civilization, any time, I think we're the best. We have an eternal empire. We're going to last forever. But then it does decline. It gets finished. And everyone is surprised when it happens. It collapses. It happens with everything. If we go to Scripture, then we can understand a little bit about this. And we understand, it's all these attempts of human beings are a little bit useless because everything gets destroyed. So this is just a way of reminding us that everything is temporary. And therefore, we shouldn't be getting too attached to our civilization or whatever. However, we can also criticize the Lord. Okay, the Lord makes this system to help remind us, but it's a little bit cruel. Why do we have to suffer? in Kali Yuga. Why don't we all live in Satya Yuga, very nice and peaceful? We don't have to struggle, don't have to work so much, whatever. And a minimum of, material problems. So the answer is that the Lord gives remedy for everything if you're intelligent. And the remedy in Kali Yuga is it's the worst, most miserable age with unqualified people. But then the Lord gives the best, easiest process for everybody. So that's the compensation. So, of course, in Satya Yuga, the Lord has given meditation, jhana. Very good. But jhana is very difficult for us. People cannot meditate. Meditation is defined as continuous concentration on one object, obviously Supreme Lord, continuously. People in the modern world cannot concentrate even on a material object for more than a few seconds. And their mind goes to another object like this. So continuously to concentrate on the Supreme Lord is a very, very difficult thing to do. And that is why people who are into controlling the mind, like yogis, will have to concentrate for a long, long time. Hundreds of years, thousands of years to get perfection. We have the illustration of the yogi with his long hair, which are meditating. So one has to meditate for a long period of time in order to get perfection of dhyana. In Satya Yuga, it was not difficult. Everybody could do it. They didn't have to go to the forest and look like a yogi and like Kumbh Mela yogis or whatever. They could everybody was naturally like a yogi, and they could meditate and concentrate on the Lord. So that was the Yuga Dharma. But things have declined, and we can't do that anymore. So in each age, which is slightly declining, like Treta Yuga, slightly contaminated, Dwapara Yuga, more contaminated, there are alternative processes. So it's not one process all the time. So we have meditation for Satya Yuga. With Treta Yuga, there's a slight degradation. And the people cannot concentrate so much internally easily on that form of the Supreme Lord in their mind. So the Lord gives another process. Okay, you cannot concentrate so much in the mind. We give you external process. So you worship the Lord through fire. External objects are there. Of course, it's not directly the Supreme Lord, but still the people have enough, let's say, mental strength that they understand it's not fire, it's Supreme Lord. They look at the fire, they answer, this is Vishnu. So when they offer the grain and the ghee into the fire, they're making an offering to Vishnu. We like to offer, flour to deity, but they don't have to do that. They just offer it into the fire, and the fire consumes it. So there's a direct response from the Supreme Lord as fire. He burns up the offering. So, and of course, to do that properly, they have to use mantras, Vedic mantras, and they have to pronounce them very correctly. But they were capable of doing that. They knew the mantras, they could pronounce them correctly, they knew how to use them, and they could invoke the Lord, and they were satisfied in offering to the fire. But in Dwapara Yuga, people don't even have the ability to memorize all the mantras properly. They can't see the Lord in fire, even. So therefore the Lord makes another arrangement. I'll give you an actual form of the Lord. Of course, then we'll say, well, that's a material form. How can, of course, even fire is a material form, but through the mantra and through their intelligence, they could understand this is actually embodying Supreme Lord. So in Dwapara Yuga, yes, we're using stone or metal or wood to make a deity form. But we also follow rules, so this becomes the Supreme Lord. How? Through pratishtha, through installation of the deity, using mantra, but not Vedic mantras, Pancharatric mantras. So it becomes a little easier. It's not Vedic anymore. We have Pancharatric mantras, which are a little easier for people to understand. And then you worship again, using mantra, but not Vedic mantra, Pancharatric mantra. So we have at Diksha, you get Pancharatric mantra to worship the deity. So the mantra is the medium by which we are able to offer to the Supreme Lord. So when we offer the flower, we have to utter the mantra, and the deity accepts it. But it is easier because we no longer have an abstraction, we no longer have inside, we have outside, and we have an actual form. So we don't have to imagine in the fire there's Vishnu there with his 4 arms. We have an actual form of Vishnu, or an actual form of Krishna. So it's easier for people because people are not so intelligent anymore. So that was the method in Dwapara Yuga. So gradually we get more concessions for people as their intelligence declines. So in Kali Yuga, people are more degraded, less intelligent, lazier, etc. So even deity worship process is not recommended for everybody. They cannot appreciate deities. And we see in the modern world, or even so many years ago, deities have gone out of fashion. We don't want deities. We don't want forms. And most of the religions of the world say, no form, no, God has no form. We don't want any forms. And this has become a major aspect of world religions. No forms for God. Don't make any statues of God. We don't want them. Break them up, whatever, like that. So, even the deity is misunderstood nowadays. What is that deity? That's material. So, what is the solution for the people of Kali Yuga who are so less intelligent? So the solution given here, as in the verses says, is Sankirtana. So no longer we need a form out of at all, and no longer we need to concentrate internally on a meditational form or whatever, on fire, whatever. Sound only. But we had sound in the previous ages also with mantras, Vedic mantras, Pancharatric mantras, etc. What's the difference? Difference is that this sound, this Sankirtan, is technically not mantra. So it doesn't require qualification. Of course, we say Hare Krishna mantra, but technically, when we talk about mantra, we mean either Vedic mantra or Pancharatric mantra, which require qualification. You cannot get the mantra unless you're a certain level. In the Vedas, of course, Vedic mantra meant first you have to take Upanayanam, then you become qualified, and you can only take Upanayanam if you're a Brahmana, Vaishya, Kshatriya. If you're a Sudra, you cannot take it. So that's the qualification for Vedic mantra. Pancharatric mantra, better. It's open to everybody, that mantra. But still, you have to get the mantra and the guru have to choose if you're qualified. So there is still qualification there. So you have to have faith at least. And then you have to learn about the mantra and whatever. So, Sankirtan, or chanting the name of the Lord, is a little bit different. It does not require any qualification, and still it has great effect. And that we see in the case of Ajamil. No faith, not a devotee, no belief in the Supreme Lord. He named his son Narayana, and all of his karmas were automatically destroyed, which cannot be accomplished by the yogi after 1,000 years of meditation even. And in 1 second, Ajamil destroyed all of his karmas by naming his son Narayana. So the name of the Lord is very, very powerful. That becomes the method in Kali Yuga, chanting the name of the Lord only, not even mantras. So it's open for everybody, and it still has power. So this is the compensation for the difficulties of the age, to remind us that nothing is permanent, everything is destroyed. Therefore, we have a Kali Yuga arranged in our particular Varsha, and the Lord gives us a solution. In spite of the fact that it is the worst age and there's so much suffering, etc., solution to everything is Nam Sankirtan. And it says here, Sarva Arta, all goals are attained by Sankirtan. What are all goals? What is one goal? Material goal. Everybody gets material goal. I got to make money. You got to get a house or whatever. So Sankirtan can give you that also. You can chant to get a house, chant to get a good job or whatever. Yeah. But, of course, if you're more intelligent, we say, well, material things aren't so good. So you can chant for getting out of the material world. You can chant for liberation. So the name could also give liberation. But the most intelligent person will go beyond liberation or will go for prema. So the name also gives that. So as the purport explains here, we can realize the Lord is Brahman. I'm not the body, I'm the soul. Soul merged in Brahman, very peaceful. This is liberation. Yeah? So you can get realization of Brahman and get liberation by chanting the name of the Lord. Not so difficult. Right? Ajabil destroyed all of his karmas by simply chanting accidentally even. So namabas, or accidental chanting, can get you up to liberation, which the yogi may strive for thousands of years, but you can get it accidentally by chanting the name of the Lord. So liberation, not so difficult. You can also get realization of Paramatma. That's the second stage is described here, where we understand not just some impersonal Brahman. We understand there is a Supreme Lord who creates the material world. So we can realize that form. This is the form which most religions will accept. God is the creator, creates the world. God destroys the world. Not untrue, it is true. So this is Paramatma realization. Of course, the problem with most religions is they'll accept that God is the creator, but they don't want to give him a form. So that's that. He's the creator, but we don't know who he is. So that's where religions in the modern world stand. So it's a struggle even to say that, okay, there's a creator and he does have a form. Even that is controversial in religions. But the Vedic scriptures and Bhagavatam go further and say this is also not the ultimate realization. Even if we say God is the creator and even if we say he has a form, that's not the ultimate. Ultimate is Bhagavan. What is the difference between Bhagavan and Paramatma? Bhagavan also has form. In fact, if you were to realize Bhagavan for worshipping Vishnu, it would look the same as Paramatma. Same form. Forearms, Shankha, Chakra, etc. Looks the same in form. That's true. But there's also a difference. And what is the difference? We realize the Supreme Lord not just as the creator. That's a secondary aspect of God, as explained here. The man, he's carrying out, managing the government, but he goes home in his palace and he's doing something else completely different. So Supreme Lord also has this Purusha avatars, creating a material world, Mahavishnu doing this, Garbhadakshay Vishnu, Kshirodakshay Vishnu, entering material world and doing things. This is Paramatma. The Lord simultaneously exists separate from all that, not involved in any of the dirty work of material world. So this is Bhagavat. Bhagavat in the spiritual world. So that's the highest realization. Of course, we go a little further than that. So yes, Bhagavan in the spiritual world with a form, not just creating the material world, doing other activities. What type of activities? So there are activities with the devotees. So if we realize Bhagavan, then we participate in the Leela of the Supreme Lord. So we participate with God in the spiritual world in activities. Further than that, we say Bhagavan. Okay, he is a spiritual form in the spiritual world. We say he's not only has a form, he has many forms in the spiritual world. So there he's mentioned, you go to Vaikuntha, you realize Vishnu. You go to Krishna, you realize Krishna and Krishna Loka instead. So there's many forms of God also, many forms of Bhagavan, not just one form. Why? Because different devotees prefer different forms, that's all. So we have Supreme Lord with many different forms in the spiritual world. This is actually a unique feature of the Vedic literature. Not only God has a form, but there's many forms of God. Many extreme forms of God. In fact, God can be an animal. God can be a horse. God can be a fish or a turtle or whatever. God can be lion, or God can be human-like. God can have 2 arms or 4 arms or 8 arms, 1,000 arms also. He can be black and white and blue and yellow and red and green. All sorts of colors. So God is unlimited. So that's another unique feature of Vedic literature. But among all the forms, we have a supreme form, that is Krishna. So that is what the Bhagavatam establishes, Krishna as the supreme form. Meaning that of all the different forms of God, actually one God with many forms, Krishna is supreme because in his form and through his activities, he manifests more qualities than the others manifest. So therefore, we put him in the supreme position. So there, Krishna is the most complete manifestation of Bhagavan. In that sense, he is Swayam Bhagavan. And because of that, if you worship Krishna and realize Krishna, then you also realize and experience the highest bliss of all, because you're realizing a more complete form of God. So this is why the Bhagavatam is recommending the people of Kali Yuga worship only Bhagavan in the form of Krishna. Though there are other forms, fine, worship this one supreme form, Krishna. Why? Because most attractive. And people in Kali Yuga need something attractive because they're so distracted by material energy. So we need the most attractive form of God, obviously. So therefore, Krishna is the most attractive form, easiest to concentrate on. So we have this formula for Kali Yuga, for the fallen people of Kali Yuga are so distracted and unintelligent. Nam Sankirtan. Chant the name of the Lord. But even more particular is not just name of the Lord, but the name of Krishna. Because Krishna is the essence of all the different forms. Here it talks about the Sarabhagina, the essence, people who enjoy the essence, basically Sarabhagina. And people who are Arya, they have higher intelligence, etc. So those who know the essence perform Sankirtan, but not just Sankirtan, using Krishna's name, because Krishna is the essence of everything. It's also said here, gunagya, which means they know qualities. So what qualities do they know? Of course, in the word for word, it says they know the value of this age, the quality of this age. There's a true quality in this age. They know the essence of the age is everything is bad, but Kirtan is good. And they know the good quality, that is Kirtan. So those who are intelligent in Kali Yuga will take up this process of Kirtan, chanting the name of the Lord. But actually the name of Krishna in our particular Yuga. So this is, of course, the whole idea, the whole thing here is to explain the avatar of Kali Yuga. So a particular form of God comes and presents Kirtan. Of course, Kirtan is already there in the Vedas, just as meditation is there, and Homa is there, and deity worship is already there, Kirtan's already there. It's all in the Vedic literature. Yeah? But it requires someone to point out, do this in this particular age. Yeah? So there is a Yuga avatar for each age who propagates that type of activity. So there's what's previously described, the Yuga avatar for Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga. And we have similarly for Kali Yuga, the avatar who propagates. So the avatar for Kali Yuga, of course, is the, in this particular case, previously with the verses here describing, he is Krishna Varnam, but he is not black like Krishna. He is Akrishna, opposite color. So there's a whole explanation here in the purport that this means Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So for our particular Yuga, after Krishna, the person who propagates that Sankirtan is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that's the blessing for our Kali Yuga. So though they're all the bad qualities of Kali Yuga, which are also discussed in Bhagavatam, particularly in 12th canto, we also have a good quality which makes it better than all the other yugas and better than all the other places. So it is said even the Devatas want to come here in our Kali Yuga because of Sankirtan. Because it's an easy process to get beyond everything else and get to the highest realization of Bhagavan. This makes it very, very special. So therefore, we should not lament our position in Kali Yuga. We take advantage of chanting the name of Krishna. Okay, any question?
You mentioned about Bharatavarsha is the only one that has this Yuga cycle. So does that mean that the Lord doesn't appear in other Varshas?
Yuga avatar.
Oh,
Just the Yuga avatars.
just the Yuga.
Yeah, because we have the Leela avatars, the other avatars, they're everywhere. Like Vamana, he is born in Svargaloka, Vamana Dev.
You said chanting was the process for Kali Yuga. Does that mean in other yugas they didn't chant or?
Yeah. Well, just as today, now we have the process is non-sankirtan, but we still may meditate, we still may do deity worship, still do homa or whatever, but it's secondary. So they can do other things in other yugas also, but main process for realizing the Lord and going to the spiritual world was meditation or homa or deity worship. Main process.
Krishna Maharaj, thank you for an enlightening class. Maharaj, my understanding of meditation and Homa was meditation you realize impersonal Brahman or Paramatma.
Or Bhagavan. Yeah, because it is said that what was achieved in Satya Yuga by meditation is achieved in Kali Yuga by Kirtan. So you're realizing the same Lord, but by different process.
So same for Homa.
Yeah.
Homa,
Yeah.
these are not the 9 processes of
Yeah.
devotional service, but you still are able to do bhakti with little process.
Yeah, so all of these processes are devotional processes, the 4 Yuga Dharmas. They're not impersonal. So through jhana, we realize Bhagavan. Through homa, we realize Bhagavan. Through deity worship Bhagavan, and through kirtan. Now, at the same time, you can use those processes for other things. So for meditation, you meditate and realize Paramatma as a yogi or Brahman. Or by sacrifices, commonly they just go to Svargaloka. They use karma kanda sacrifices to go to Svargaloka. So we can use same processes for material things also, or even Brahman or whatever. So similarly with deities. So we can worship deities. We can worship Devata deities and get material results also. We can do kirtan of Ganesha's name or whatever and get material results also. So you can use the same processes for material things or spiritual things.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, my name is Deshu and I'm doing selective this year. And I find it hard to balance sports and chanting as well as studying. How do I
Studying and chanting.
study
Yeah.
chanting and sports? Because I do athletics and stuff.
Chanting and?
Sports.
Oh, sports. Okay. So, yeah.
What can I do to make it less stressful?
Well, an intelligent person will not just do one thing. So you cannot just study. You have to eat, you have to sleep, so many things. So generally we have to do all things. We have to study for cultivating the mind. We have to take care of the body. So therefore we have to exercise and do whatever like that. We also have to take care of the Atma inside the body because it's the most important thing. So we have to do something for spiritual life. So that's why we chant. So we have to balance out these different things, the physical, the mental, and the spiritual, and do some of each. According to the necessity at the time, we may do more of the study and less of the physical or whatever, so we can balance that out. But nevertheless, we should never give up on any of these. So there has to be a little bit of everything all the time.
Maharaj, you mentioned about the various yugas. Obviously, how do you understand Bhagavatam in this? Obviously, it was just compiled before the Kali Yuga, we could understand.
Yeah.
So, was there a need for text like Bhagavatam in Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga? Or because the purity was much more in those yugas, the need for Bhagavatam was not, external Bhagavatam was not.
Yeah. So actually, not only Bhagavatam, but all the Puranas were written by Veda Vyas just before Kali Yuga to make everything easier. Because before that, they had Vedas, and even the Vedas were difficult, so therefore Veda Vyas made 4 Vedas instead of 1 Veda. So previously, they just had Veda, basically, and people could access it. But he understood that Kali Yuga, especially, people will not understand this at all. So then he wrote these works for everybody. So Bhagavatam and the other Puranas come out just for the people of Kali Yuga.
Kali Yuga has been there for many years. Why Yuga Avatara is coming just 500 odd years? Why Bhagwan is creating that kind of an arrangement if it's been there for thousands of years?
Okay, yeah. Well, of course, Kali Yuga lasts, 432,000 years. And Lord Chaitanya's appeared 5,000 years after the beginning. So it's like at the beginning, it's near the very beginning, actually, not not even in the middle. So we have to wait 200,000 years later for the middle. So this is actually at the very beginning. From our point of view, of course, we say, 5,000 years is a lot of years, but in terms of length of Kali Yuga, it is nothing. It's not even 1%, I think.
So we're talking about the degradation over the ages. So when we start from such a place of purity like Satya Yuga, how do we degrade? How does the degradation happen when everything is so good in Satya Yuga?
How does it happen? Well, it is. This is degradation in terms of gunas. So in Satya Yuga, it is prominently sattvic. It's not perfect, because even in Satya Yuga, we have demons. Treta Yuga, we have demons. Dwapara Yuga is full of demons. Krishna is killing demons all the time. So no age is perfect, but there's a prominence of sattva in Satya Yuga. So most people are sattvic, they control the mind very easily, whatever, can do meditation, whatever. So why it declines is because nature of time. Time degrades everything. We have the gunas. At the very beginning of creation, Mahavishnu glances over Prakriti. And what happens? Mahatattva arises. That's the first evolute from Prakriti. And what is Mahatattva? It's full of sattva. Before that, nothing, Prakriti is there, but we can't distinguish any guna at all. When Mahavishnu glances and rejects jivas, suddenly sattva arises. So a little bit of imbalance out of that balanced state where nothing is visible, suddenly sattva arises. But when that happens, once sattva arises, that creates imbalance. And then sattva starts turning into rajas. And rajas turns into tamas. And then tamas creates or manifests ahankara. And then ahankara manifests material elements and sense objects and all this. And then we get universes forming out of that, all matter. So, the gunas are in an imbalanced state. So one time we'll have sattva coming, then we have rajas, then we have tamas, and then we have sattva like this. So it's constantly changing in the material world. That's just the nature of Prakriti, that we get this imbalance, and one will become prominent, the others will be less.
Thank you for the wonderful class, Maharaj. We see that, for each age there is a Yuga Dharma. So in Kali Yuga, like both men and women, they chant and they can achieve perfection. In Dwapara Yuga, the Reiki worship can be done by men and women. In Treta Yuga, maybe, husband and wife sitting together, so both of them can achieve perfection in fire sacrifice. But in Satya Yuga, like I have never seen a woman's photograph doing a yoga.
Meditating. I think Sati was meditating, wasn't she? Huh?
I mean, that's applicable for both, and then they also used to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course, generally in the scriptures, it just mentions the men. So most of the personalities are men. But we do have women sometimes. We have Kuti Devi and Draupadi and a few others. I think, we have Dhruva's mother. Whatever. We have a few women mentioned, not so prominent. If we look in the Upanishads, we'll find actually, which are very Vedic and strict in one sense, we do find women acharyas, surprisingly. So Gargi Acharya was the famous Acharya. Gargi, who else? There's another one. A few are quite famous. They're mentioned in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad as, as Acharyas actually. So they were teaching Vedic knowledge to people. So they were very, very elevated, telling them all about Brahman and this and that, whatever. So therefore women were participating to some degree, even in Vedic life.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the wonderful class. Maharaj, I've got two questions. During your lecture, you covered that there have been various prominent civilizations through the ages, and then how they've got degraded and dissipated over time. So in the age that we live in, and then you gave the example of the British Empire as well, in this age. So in our time, if we look at the world around us, we've probably still got the remnants of Vedic civilization in modern India, and you've got a government that has a semblance of supporting it.
Mm-hmm.
So then, as devotees, what should our attitude be towards such a government, or any such government, similar government that is supporting the semblance of Vedic civilization?
So anything that is favorable for devotional service, we can support, obviously. Not even just India, any government of the world is a little bit favorable to bhakti, fine, or theism, whatever. They're completely atheistic, or it's unfavorable, so we don't like. So whatever is favorable, we support that. We can support that.
And one more question is, also as the Kali Yuga, advances and we see it, the point you made around the attention span of people becoming smaller, lower and lower. So even now when we live in a digital age, in the last 10 years, especially now, we've had social media come. And even with social media, as we see advances, even the forms of entertainment that they throw at us, particularly the content becomes shorter and shorter. They used to be large videos, now they're shorts. And
2-minute video.
it becomes shorter and shorter. So if you want to preach outside of the realm of devotees in the wider society, and we're aware of the fact that people's attention span is very low. That's one thing. And the other thing is they relate to us along with the cultural nuances that we come with. As in the way we dress, the way we present ourselves. How do we present ourselves in a way which is attractive and palatable to draw normal society and take us slowly?
So this is a controversial point. We can go both ways. We can be very strict and stick to whatever was done 50 years ago or 100 years ago, whatever, and we can keep doing that into the future for 1,000 years or something like that. Same dress, same tilak, same words, whatever. That's in one sense, okay, fine, it's traditional. And people in other sampradayas, like Sri Sampradaya, would probably support that. They don't want to change at all. And Madhva's the same. They really don't want to change anything from 1,000 years ago even. But we also see that the scope, the audience is very limited by doing that in the modern world. So Sri Sampradaya is there, but it's not really expanding. The only way it exists now is hereditary. Because your parents were that, you're this, or the same with the Madhvas. They don't really expand at all. And if they were to present their philosophy to people in general in the modern world, nobody's going to understand what it is even. So, therefore, we do have to adapt. And that's exactly what our Sampradaya has done. It's starting with Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and then Bhaktisiddhanta and Srila Prabhupada. We adapt to the modern world. First they got books, printed books, distributed books like anything. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that was their mission, to publicize through books the nature of Lord Chaitanya's movement to everybody. And so they were successful doing that. So they borrowed from the British. They took the printing press that the British brought and they used that. Traditionalists may condemn that. Oh, well, you're taking something from the aggressors who are trying to conquer us or whatever. It was useful at that time. So Srila Prabhupada also did the same thing. And he utilized tape recorders, dictaphones, and whatever, airplanes or whatever. Of course, probably his preaching remained exactly like it was with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, etc. But at least the methods he used were innovative also. So, unfortunately, the modern world, since Prabhupada has changed radically, even, of course it changed from Second World War to 20 years later, changed a lot, 48, 58, 61, Prabhupada was there. Radical changes took place. But then, since that time, since the 70s to now, we've gone through great changes. One, of course, is innovations in terms of machines and technology and communications and whatever. So we go from tape recorders to little tape recorders to very little tape recorders, and we go from computers to that had floppy disks and things like that. That's unheard of nowadays. You got a little thing you stick in. And have a few GBs now. You got gigabytes and terabytes and whatever. So things are advancing very, very quickly in the modern world in terms of communications and all that. Apart from which we can utilize also. We can't get stuck at one level. So we can just print books and distribute books, but then who's going to read them in the modern world? They don't. Their attention span is 2 minutes. So to get the Bhagavad Gita is going to take them 20 years. They were distributing Bhagavad Gitas everywhere. Nobody reads them. So that's why so they have audiobooks now. So even BBT has audiobooks and things like that for people. Or we have the digital books as well. So we have to innovate to some degree like that. So apart from that, then the technological innovations, which are faster and faster, until we'll probably have virtual reality books or something like that. So you have to do that for the Bhagavad Gita or something. I don't know how you do it, but you'll have to have something like that. But apart from that innovation in technology, you have the social change. And that has radically changed over the last 30 years or so, from Prabhupada's time to now. It's completely different. We had the counterculture and the hippies at that time. We don't have any hippies anymore. And we got all sorts of other weird things happening in the modern world. So then we do have to address that also somehow. So this is even more controversial, how to accommodate the modern world within the scope of ISKCON. And then we have constant arguments among devotees, about what to do, equal rights for women and all this sort of thing, like that. Or we have to follow Vedic system, women has to be obedient to the man. So, all sorts of social changes and whatever, psychological changes are there among people. And as you said, their attention span is getting less and less. So all of these things also we do have to address. But how much we change, that's, of course, debatable. That's the whole question. How much we can change without changing the whole philosophy and whatever like that. So that's the basic thing. Somehow we maintain the principles and the philosophy, etc., and the standards. At the same time, we should adapt to technological things and even some of the social things. We have to preach in a different way because people won't listen if you're stuck in a different social system, preaching a different system. You have to somehow adapt. But how much we adapt, that's the whole question.
Thank you for your association. I understand this Yuga Dharma, we have to do the chanting, and through the chanting only we can get the Krishna Prema and everything. But the people whom we are associating and including kids and parents, so when we ask them to chant, they do mostly mechanical chanting, including us sometimes. So I would like to understand, will this mechanical chanting also deliver the same results as the heartfelt Sankirtan?
So, in mechanical chanting, okay, as I said, Ajahn didn't even have mechanical chanting, he just named it Sundarayana. And he got effect. He got all of his karmas destroyed, which has a big effect for the yogis and the gyanis because they strive for thousands of years to do that. He did that in a few seconds. So, chanting in any form is good. Of course, if we have devotion, at least a little bit of devotion or faith, it is better. So we get better effects the better we can do it. So if we have a little devotion, it's better than no devotion or accidental. We have a little devotion, good. If you have a little devotion and we have more attentiveness, that's better. if we have faith, attentiveness, and we have some knowledge of what we're doing and who Krishna is and what is pure bhakti, it's even better. So, name can give various effects as we get better at doing it. So, it can get rid of your karmas, even if you do it accidentally or whatever, or inattentively, you can get rid of your karmas. But, of course, if you get rid of all your karmas, you can get liberation. But we don't want liberation. We want prema. So, if we want to get prema, then we do have to have some attention. We try to be attentive, but we have to, of course, that's gradual. And we have to get some knowledge. So that's why we have the books. So we can get some basic knowledge about what is proper way of chanting, what is proper conduct of a devotee, who is Supreme Lord, etc. To get that knowledge, we have to have knowledge of Scripture. Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
His Holiness Bhanu Swami Maharaj ki jai.